shorts.
That's right, we welcome him home. He fits in there.
I'm praying you right there. So bad. Can't ever leave. Spend last night, tonight, and tomorrow night. And then Wednesday night. How many people going tomorrow? 6. Oh, total 6. Brandon went? Brandon. As I said, she kicked me out now.
Good evening, Council, and members of the audience and staff. Now time is 6 o'clock. Please join me in standing for the invocation to be given by Council Member Allen.
Let's pray. Father God, thank you for this day, the opportunity to be here, to function as a servant of the town and to carry out the work of this community. Well, thank you for these men and women that are surrounding us tonight as we make these decisions and the dedication they have as well. Father, I pray that you'll be with this town as it grows. Father, be with us in this time of season as we celebrate not only Christmas but the birth of Jesus Christ. Father, be with us tonight. Guide us, direct us, and keep our town safe. These things we pray in your name.
Amen. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Thank you, Mr. Allen, for leading the invocation tonight. First item on the item is announcements and acknowledgement. This is the time members of the council and staff may make announcements on items listed on the agenda. I want to take a moment to appreciate all staff. All of you worked hard to put together a fabulous Christmas tree lighting. I know a lot of people played. Everybody had their role. Jeff, we missed you. I know you are working behind the scene. I know that one, but lots of positive comment. It's just a season of joy and just really a beautiful opening of the season. So thank every one of the staff members for that. Anyone else from the members of the council?
I just want to agree and say thank you, staff. Thank you for all the great work. It was a great event. I know I've heard a lot of positive praise and feedback. So thank you very much.
I'm looking forward to the movie in the park on 16th, right? This coming up. Just looking forward to that one. Okay. Staff was announcements.
Mayor and Council, we have our first movie event on December 16th. That's a Friday night at 6 p.m. at the school. We're going to use their parking lot and have a drive-in style movie and show Charlie Brown on Christmas and then The Grinch. So, and then there will be refreshments for sale.
That's awesome.
Popcorn, sodas, candy.
Unfortunately, the first one I have to miss, but I'm looking forward to the future ones. Any other announcements from the staff? Okay, I'm going to close that item. Moving on to the public comment. This is the time. Members of the audience may come forward and speak to the council on any items other than legal matters or personal matters or items on the agenda. If there's anyone from the members of the audience who would like to come forward and speak to the council at this time, you may come forward. No one is coming forward, so we're going to close the public comments. Moving on to the next item, council, item number item number 1, section 551.07 for personnel matters to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, town manager review. Council, can I have a motion to adjourn into executive session?
Motion to adjourn executive session.
Motion made by Mr. Allen.
Second.
Second by Mr. Clark to adjourn the executive session. Everyone heard the motion? All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed. 6-0, Mr. Freeman is absent. Now time is 6:04. Now we are in executive session. Thank you.
what is called the TERS fund and the general fund of the town. What that split is solely at the discretion of the town council. The recommendation in this project and finance plan is 50%, but cities and towns all across the state have done higher. They've done 75%, some do 25%. Typical baseline most cities do would be 50%, and so that's what we went with in this recommendation as well.
That can be modified eventually if you choose to do one way or other, up or down?
Yes, sir. It can be modified at any time. Additionally, there is a ultimate termination date. So in this case, the TERSs are set for 30 years. So upon the termination of the TERSs, then all of the new revenue, all that new increment that's been generated over time would be directed towards the general fund. So it's a limited time tool. And that termination date is also flexible. The town council has the capability to amend that at any time. So you could get 10 years down the line and a new project comes on that you want to incentivize for a long period of time, and you could amend the term of the zone for that reason.
So just to be sure, right? So the zone, it's made up of certain area, right? Certain geographic boundaries, right?
Yes, sir.
And the time is time, 30 years, for example. So if we choose to adjust the zone, plus or minus, do we have to terminate and restart? We just make that adjustment, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
You just make the adjustment at that time.
thanks.
And you're required to go through the same process to amend the zone as you did to create the zone as well. Next slide, please. So this is the creation process as found on the comptroller's website. So we are currently at step number 3, which is hold a public hearing. That's what we're doing tonight. And then ultimately, after the creation ordinances, if they are approved by the town, that would designate the reinvestment zone. The next steps from there then would be to prepare a final project and finance plan. So that would allow the town to make any adjustments, add any new projects at that time. But you can amend the plan even after that. You could go back 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and do so. Additionally, after the TERSs have been created, that's typically whenever you would approach other entities to participate in the zone. And so that's one of the unique tools of a TERS, is that other entities can participate. So most commonly, that would be the county. In this case, Dallas County has a pretty strong list of requirements for participating in TERSs, but that's a conversation that town staff will have with Dallas County in 2023, and we'll assist them however we can in that.
So you're saying that while we may approve this, it's not totally a done deal until Dallas County agrees?
No, sir, that's not that's not what I was trying to say.
Dallas County sets up and we just happen to be in the area.
So you are tonight, and then at the following meeting, you would create the zone. At that time, you're appointing the TERS board, which would consist of council. After that, in 2023, you can request Dallas County to participate in your zone. And if they do so, then typically the way it works is they approve a specific agreement. It sets a max contribution of how many dollars they would do, or they would generate or contribute to the zone. And then they would also get an appointee to the TERS board.
So the money going into the bucket hopefully will get expand or increase.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir, exactly right. Beyond that, the TERS ends up becoming a functional part of the town's budgeting process. So every year you would approve a TERS fund budget with anticipated projects that you want to fund from the TERS.
Must will be separate, TERS 2 and 3 will be separate budget.
Mm-hmm. And then lastly, the ongoing reporting requirements. The comptroller's office does require a report to be filed every year. It's relatively small, it's just 3 pages, and typically we help our clients filing those reports. So this is the specific boundary. You're about to see a lot of different maps. The first one is kind of a north TERS, taking as much as possible of the undeveloped properties within the north side of the town. That's so that you are establishing that base taxable value in 2022. When these are undeveloped, that value will be extremely low. And then as those values increase over time, you're going to get a much greater increment going into the TERS fund, which can then be used for the specific projects that benefit the TERS.
So Jeff, just to be sure, on this TERS 2, left side, the the middle section, that's the sports complex, correct?
That's correct, Mayor. On Beltline, yes, sir. On the left side, that's correct.
How is it that there are newly developed neighborhoods under HOA in this TERS area, but yet there are non-HOA developed older neighborhoods that are not in the TERS zone?
So since the TERS functions off of incremental value increases, by including that new neighborhood on the south side of this zone within the TERS, you're including, since it was constructed this year, that base taxable value for it is still very low. And so in 2023, there should be a fairly substantial increase in value. And so you're really, in my eyes, a wise decision because it provides a dedicated increment of revenue going into the TERS fund very early in the life of the TERS.
Okay, and maybe the reason for my part of confusion is this is only the revenue generator, it's not the project area.
It is also the project area. I have a map later in the presentation that identifies the rough locations of the projects. But again, that can be amended at any time. And so if there's new projects that come out next year even that the town wants to fund.
New project needed in an old developed neighborhood that's not a part of the TERS, then it can be drawn in, is what you're saying, and money could be applied to that.
Yes, the only difference that I would caveat there is that if it's a neighborhood that's not located within the TERS currently, then that would require an amendment to the boundary, and you would have to make sure that you're still within the statutory requirements, which we're fairly close to the maximums. We're within them in a safe level. So I don't know if there would be the ability to stay within those statutory maximums and include those territories. That's why we tried to strip out those built-out neighborhoods, because they already have most of the infrastructure needs that they have at the time.
If I could add to that answer as well, you can also reduce other areas of the zone to accommodate older neighborhoods that aren't in the zone if you need to stay within the state cap of, I believe it's the 50% of valuation. So you can modify the zones at any time to accommodate a project. So you just modify the boundaries and then you would subsequently add the project in. And if that meant you had to reduce a boundary somewhere else, you could certainly do that. I will just also add to what Kirk had said about the new subdivisions in this particular area. There's a very large portion of those 3 residential areas that, again, are probably only taxed at the land value or partial construction value this year, which is, again, the rationale for including those in there. The older neighborhoods, well, and I'll just use Stony Creek, right off of Collins to the west there. There aren't a lot of projects in there because the neighborhood is still fairly new, and the value growth will be much less than it would be for the new subdivisions coming online. So, but absolutely, the council and the TERS board every year can amend the boundaries as well as the project plan.
Excellent. Any other questions, council, at this time? Okay. You want to go to the next slide? So then this is the southern TERS. The primary focus here was trying to include as much of the new industrial districts as possible, with a similar mentality as including the new neighborhood, which is it gives you a dedicated increment early in the life of a TERS. Typically, whenever cities create TERSs like this over a significant area, it can take some time to really generate a significant amount of revenue. It could take upwards of 5 years before you're really getting significant dollars. We think in this case that won't apply to Sunnyvale because we've been deliberate in including these properties that are already developing, and we expect to see big increases in the next year or 2. We think there will be a dedicated revenue stream a lot earlier in the life of this TERS, in both TERSs.
Mayor and Council, if I can also add on this particular boundary, you'll notice the far eastern edge is our ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction. And just to clarify, there's no value for that, but we did want to, at the staff level, recommend, and we worked with Petty & Associates on this, go ahead and include the ETJ in there because there are potential projects there. So that ETJ creates no tax value for the incremental fund, but it will allow us to put projects in for that ETJ. Say, for example, if there was annexation or a road widening project down the future, then we have that ability by including that ETJ in.
Can you point out, I know it's a green boundary, I'm trying to figure out exactly where it is.
Our ETJ, if you look at the far southeastern corner of that little kind of hook, if you will, and that's really south of Syene. So it creates that kind of little hook down on the bottom right corner, the light blue. And if you follow that, basically,
Is this section over here?
yes, sir, that's correct. And that goes all the way up to the top, I believe.
Lawson Road's the dark black line.
Yes, that is Lawson Road, south of 80.
That is smart. So right now it's a zero value?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. It's considered whatever the taxable value of the city today. So yes.
Cities, okay, gotcha.
Yes. So the property does have value.
Right, that's what I was thinking, okay.
Right. But from the town's perspective, that taxable value is zero because it's not in the town limits.
Huh, interesting. Very interesting. So just 1 second. I'm sorry, just give me a second, okay?
Not a problem.
Yeah, keep moving. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So this is some summary statistics on each of these TERSs. So the project and finance plan before you now assumes that the town is participating at 50%. And we also modeled in for illustrative purposes what the county's participation would be as well. So 50% is what we plugged in. Typically, if counties choose to participate, they'll match what the town or the city does. So that's what we've modeled here as well. For acreage, these are fairly large TERSs, both of them are. In total, it's about 8,000 acres, but you can see the different amounts there. What that really means is that there's significant room for growth and new values to come online because there's a lot of undeveloped property that's prime for development. As far as the base taxable values, so this is set for the 2022 taxable value, $136 million and $329 million. That's roughly 45% of the town's total taxable value. The statutory limit is 50%, and so we're within that. And so that's part of the statutory findings in the ordinance that you would consider. And then lastly, as I mentioned earlier, it's a 30-year TERS.
So it's the 50% or below at the time of TERS formation, correct?
Yes. Yes. Yes,
Future
sir.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, at the time of creation. The only case where it would matter would be if you chose to amend the boundaries later on, then you would still have to meet the statutory requirements.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Now, a question on that, if we do decide to change it, and, you know, as Councilmember Egan said, mentioned, maybe we want to include a neighborhood or something, at the time we reevaluate that geographic area, is it taken, basically, how would you run that formula? Would it be everything at the time that you add it to it? So let's say we do it in 3 years. So in 2025, would we then have to take the property value of that geographic area, including the new section, at the time of 2025?
So the way that it would function would be, if you're adding new property to the zone, then you would take that property's value at the time that you're doing it. So if you're adding in a new neighbor or an older neighborhood in 2025, you would be adding that taxable value to the equation.
Okay. Thanks.
Next slide, then. So this is the revenue projection here, and again, the county has not yet agreed to participate, but both TERSs would generate significant amounts of money, estimated at $65 million for TERS number 2 and $69 million for TERS number 3. One of the things I just want to note for council here is that this is a very conservative forecast. We use in our models just a 2% value escalator, and we do that for every year, we do that each year, except for 2 years every decade. And we do that to try and simulate economic downturns. That said, I was talking with Jeff before this meeting, and The financial advisors for the town expect value growths, at least this past summer, they expected value growths closer to 9%. And even, that was the summers a few months ago. Economy's changed some, but even if you have that, 4.5% is still higher than the 2%. So the forecast here before you is very, very conservative. And so you could definitely come in way over these numbers. Next slide. So this is the list of the project costs, and these are detailed in the project and finance plan as well. These are specific projects that the town staff did an excellent job of identifying. And if we go to the next slide, we've identified them on the map as well. And so this is the rough locations of all of those projects that you've seen before. Including these projects within the TERS plan does not obligate the TERS to fund these items, but it makes them eligible for that TERS funding. So if in a year or two you're wanting to fund some of these projects, it makes it eligible for the TERS to be used for those dollars, but the town could also use other financing tools as well. So it'll be at the discretion of the town council to choose when these projects are actually funded.
And Mayor and Council, if I could also point out a couple things. I think here you can much more clearly see the ETJ over in the red. It's actually the pink area. So that was a question from a previous slide, so it's a little bit more pronounced here in this map. Secondly, of all these projects, I just wanted to give you some summary data in terms of what categories those projects fall in. As Kirk had mentioned, we're looking about at $158 million worth of public projects identified here. Approximately 40 million of that is water, sewer, and drainage projects. 7.5 million of that would be bridge work. $5.5 million would be available for economic development items, either incentives or infrastructure related work. $64 million dedicated towards roadways in these two different TERS zones, and $10 million allocated for trails work, and $30 million, a little over $30 million dedicated for something on Collins, which could be related to a town center or it could be related to capital facilities. So of the $158 million, that's kind of how it breaks down by some of the larger categories.
Hey, Mr. McDaniel, just because we form TERS doesn't mean town's net revenue is increasing, right? It's the same. We just bucket it differently, right?
Right.
If we don't have a TERS, we still get the incremental value we get, right? But
Yes,
where I'm going with this one is, so I'm going to assume that any type of matching fund, COG or something, will still continue to be eligible for county match type of thing, right? We're not really making money here. We just bucketed it and call it TERS, right? It's the same money, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
no impact at all to our ability to apply for grants, all of them.
Yes, sir. You're still able to apply for all of those grants. And a couple of points on that. The first would be that the primary driver of the TERS, though, is that because there's a new financing tool here, it can often encourage development to come that wouldn't have come if the TERS didn't exist. And so you'll probably see developers come in more quickly because you have this financing tool available to you. And then second, we've worked with COG many times in relation to TERSs, and there's been multiple instances where there's a major roadway that COG is coming in to put in, and they want to see matching dollars from the city or the town in that area. And we've seen it multiple times where the town is being able to create a TERS and provide dedicate a portion of that revenue to that project as their matching grant. And so, yes, COG's very familiar with TERSs as well, and oftentimes uses them.
And Mayor, for the public's information, this is not a new tax. This is not changing our tax rate. It is not increasing anyone's taxes. It is simply earmarking a small portion of the tax base growth to fund on a cash flow basis public projects in the community based on our existing tax base.
Any questions? Thanks.
Thank you.
So Rachel, this is posted as a public hearing also? Okay. So at this time, let me invite public to come forward and make comments. And time for public hearing on item number 3. If anyone from the audience would like to come forward and speak to the council on item number 3, you may do so at this time. No one is coming forward from the chamber, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Again, this is the first reading, and this will be back on the second reading. I would assume the December 12th meeting, correct? Okay. Council time for discussion, council discussions or questions for Mr. McDaniel or staff. Okay, if there are no questions or discussions, I call for a motion on item number 3.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Eldridge to approve item number 3 as presented.
Second?
Second by Mr. Clark. Everyone heard the motion. Are there additional discussions? If none, all in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Mr. Freeman is absent. Moving on to item number 4, discuss, consider, and act upon the first reading of ordinance 2022-38 designating a geographic area within the town as tax increment investment zone pursuant to chapter 311 of the Texas Tax Code to be known as reinvestment zone number 3. Council, I think Mr. McDaniel covered both TERS. Mr. Jones, any comments, additional comments here also?
No, sir, this is just the ordinance for the second TER zone, identical to the previous
Mr.
item.
McDaniel, anything else, sir? Okay. If there are none, I call for public comments. If anyone from the members of the audience would like to come forward and speak to the council on item number 4, you may do so at this time. No one is coming forward, so let me close the public hearing on item number 4. Council, time for discussions. If there are no questions or discussions or comments on item number 4, I call for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion made by Mr. Eldridge, second by Mr. Clark to approve item number 4 as presented. Everyone heard the motion. Are there additional discussions? If none, all in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Mr. Freeman is absent. Again, council, this is also first reading, and this will be back on the agenda for the second reading on December 12th. Okay, if there are none, okay, we don't have item for, yeah, I know, I was just doing agenda for the council, agenda or not, nothing, it's okay. Council item number 5, moving on to section, item number 5, section 551 order .07 for personal matters. To deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duty, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, town manager review. Can I have a motion to adjourn into executive session? Motion made by Mr. Allen. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Clark to adjourn to executive session. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Mr. Freeman is absent. Now time is 7:06 and we are in executive session. I do anticipate result action out of this executive session when we reconvene back into the general session. Thanks. Effective December 1st. Need a pen? You ready? Okay, now time is 7:40. We are back in open session. Council, as a result of the executive session, do you have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to provide a pay raise for our town manager in the amount of 5% from $207,500 to the amount of $217,875. Again, 5% raise effective December 1st.
Okay, motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Clark to approve a salary increase for the town manager from $207,500 to $217,875, which is a 5% increase effective 12/1/2022. So a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Eldridge. Everyone heard the motion? Are there additional discussions? If none, all in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Mr. Freeman is absent. Council, can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Motion made by Allen to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Mr. Clark. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 6-0. Time is 7:41 and meeting for December 5th is adjourned. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Appreciate you.